believe in democracy? Do you believe in republicanism? Do you believe in communism? Do you believe in fascism? Do you believe in anarchism? Those are ideologies. Are you a Muslim? Are you a Jew? Are you a Christian? Are you an atheist? Are you Hindu? Are you a Shintoist? Those are the things that separate us. But notice it doesn't necessarily divide us. It divides us when we let it divide us. Not necessarily. It separates us into categories for sure. But again, it's a very, very Marxist approach. If you believe that those differences, or that separations have to therefore divide us, if you don't see the difference between separation and division, then I would say to you that you've probably been indoctrinated with Marxist thinking. Because Marxists will try to eliminate a difference between those two. You're different from me? Yes. Well, then we have to fight. No, but we have a religion that separates us. Right, so you guys are divided. No, we're separated, but we're not divided. Divided means that we're, at war with each other. Well, if you don't overtake them, they're going to overtake you. That's just the way it works. There's either an oppressor, there's always an oppressor and an oppressed. Which one are you? Do you have everything in life you want? Do you feel like you've always been treated fairly? Well, I guess not. Well, then that's why, because you're being oppressed. Here's a gun, go. That's almost exactly how it happens. You make it overly simplified. That's the danger when you ask a person a question, you ask them, can you just give me a short answer? Can you just give me a yes or no? Not every question has a yes or no. In fact, most don't. In fact, most good questions don't have most good answers are not just going to be yes and no. Most answers are difficult, they're complicated. And we run a risk when we oversimplify things. Yeah. And what you found, by the way, largely is that with regards to the COVID vaccine, I should be careful about saying COVID on my video because one of my videos I got a channel strike for mentioning the word COVID in a video. One time we were talking about COVID-19. So I should be careful about mentioning COVID-19 in these videos so that I don't get another community strike for mentioning COVID-19. Sorry, the unnamed virus of unspecified origins, we'll call it that. Anyway, you saw that what separated people out between people who would take the vaccine and people who didn't, it was ideology. In other words, there was, from the word ideology, you obviously recognize the word, hopefully, idea in there. It's the ideas that drive people. And there are people who didn't take the vaccine. Some people because they believed that there were microchips inside the vaccine. There are some people who didn't take it because they didn't think it was proven and effective. They didn't want to put an experimental vaccine in their bodies. Some people didn't take it just because they didn't want to be told what to do. And so all of those kind of ideologies would separate them from the people who wanted to take it. And for the people who wanted to take it, it wasn't enough to just say, well, we're choosing to take it. Their ideology was, well, it's not just us who have to take it, but everybody has to take it, whether you want to or not. So that was where the real division in ideology came from. People who were okay with mandating and people who were not. And of course, that's something that you still see today, largely. Yeah. So you think Jews are outsiders? You think Jews are outsiders? That's what it sounded like to me. Everybody heard that, right?
Yeah.
You son of a bitch. Separate from us, you. That's the way it works, by the way. You didn't say that. I'm joking with it, but you find it happening like almost to that extreme. It's like you just mentioned that one word because you mentioned that one word, like they're just words that when you hear it just gets everyone's attention. Like Jew for some reason. When you hear the word Jew, everyone's like, does someone mention Jews? Or if you say something like race, everyone's like, what race? Racism? No, I was talking about how I ran a marathon this past weekend, a race. Well, what kind of race was it? Like, which kind of racism was it? No, race, like you run a race. They're just words that as soon as we use them, all of a sudden we get people's attention. Yeah, like if I say suicide, everyone's ears prick up and they start paying attention. But yeah, it's something like that where Hitler used ideology. And what's interesting is that that's actually a fantastic example of it because we don't really have a complete understanding about why, largely most people don't have a complete understanding about why it is that Hitler didn't like the Jews. We tend to think like, oh, he thought that they were subhumans, he thought that they were animals. No, that's not what he wrote. That's not what his inner circle wrote. What they wrote was that they believed very strongly in evolution. And they believed very, very strongly that humans we're just animals, which is interesting because we tend to, some people tend to associate like Catholicism or religion with Hitler. No, very far from it. Very far from it. He said he would refer to religion once in a while because that's something that gets people going. But what they actually believed was in evolution. They believed that essentially there were people who were more fit and people who were less fit to survive. And when you look at Jews, they're a relatively small group of people. And yet everywhere they go, they seem to thrive and they seem to do very, very well. Why? Well, because it's built into their religion, the idea of work ethic, keeping your head down and working. And they see success as a sign of blessings from God. And so what that means, therefore, is if you work hard, suddenly you do very, very well, surprise, surprise, and then you get blessed. And then so they see success as something supernatural. So it makes sense. You put your head down and you work. That's very different from other ideologies, like an ideology like communism, which says everybody's a victim of social oppression. And if you believe that you're a victim of social oppression, it doesn't make sense to work very hard, because the idea is you can never get ahead anyway. The rich people will always keep you down. And if you believe that, you won't work very hard. You won't see a need to. So you won't see a reason to. And then surprise, surprise, you don't work hard, you walk around angry, what happens? You don't do very well in life, which confirms what you think about life. So Hitler believed that the Jews were a relatively small group of people who seemed to do very well everywhere they went. So he looked at them and said, this is a group that is very fit to survive, because they survive everywhere they go. They get banned from countries. There are specific words in the English language and the German language to describe oppression towards just Jews and attacks against Jews. There's a special word for it because it happens so often wherever they go. And so Hitler looked at them and said, yeah, exactly, pogrom. So Hitler looked at them and said, it looks like there's going to be a race between essentially the Jews and other groups. He referred to them as the Aryans, which is interesting because there were Aryans, but they were actually from Persia, which is interesting. So just geographically, he's off by a few thousand miles. But he believed that it would be a kind of like how you say it, basically a survival of the fittest contest between the Jews and the Aryans. And in order to make sure that the Aryans won, the idea was you have to kill off all the Jews, because otherwise they might actually win this whole thing. And so because of that, that's why he did it. Now, you can't go out there on television and explain to millions of people what I just explained to you, because people would look at that and be like, evolutionary theory, not going to buy into it. So it's hard to get people to do what you want them to do if they don't understand it. So instead what you do is you just come along and say, racism. And then we're like, yeah, you're right, dude. Yeah, it's something really, really super simple that it seems like you can all get behind. People come up with deep ideas, then they find simple ways of getting it to manifest in cultures. This is why, think about how long we have, I'll leave it at that. So it's much easier to get simple messages, even right now. Think about we're in this room right now and so few of you are paying attention to a word of what's going on. And you've got excuses. Oh, it's warm, but this, but that. Yeah, of course, plenty of excuses for it. But it makes, what that simply means is that it's really easy to indoctrinate you with just a few words, because you're not thinking much about the ideas. And it's really easy to, although I really have to do therefore to get you to listen to just a few words, is make life a little bit uncomfortable for you. Just introduce some heat into the room, or introduce a little bit of challenges, raise the prices on your bread just a little bit, and then you make people uncomfortable, and then they don't need to hear your deep messages. They only need to hear a few words to motivate them. We take for granted. We look at people like Hitler and Mussolini, like, they were really smart. They found out a way to motivate people. It's not that hard. It really is not that hard. It's pretty simple if you pay attention to it. It's easy to do. Tell people the things that they want to hear. That's easy, first off. Find out, first off, you create problems for them, or you identify the problems they have. But if they don't have any, you got to create problems for them. This is the Marxist approach. You need to, it's called increase the contradictions. Find out if people are too happy, you're going to make them sad. You have to make them unhappy. You have to tell them that their life is trash. Even if it's not, just got to convince them it is. The best way to do that is to show them that they don't have as much as somebody else, that they don't, they don't have the opportunities, even if it's their fault. Still, tell them the things they want to hear, not what's actually true. Tell it to them in short sentences so they are sure to understand it. Use small words so people are sure to understand it. and then you wind him up. It's not that hard. Like what Hitler did was not that hard. It happened before him, it's happened since him. We give him too much credit just because a whole bunch of people died from it. But my point to all of that is that what drove that war is exactly that, an ideology. This is the thing that moves people. This is the thing that makes history. It isn't who picks up the gun. It's the ideology. It's the ideologist behind the person with the gun, the person who said the right things to get you to pick up guns. Nobody remembers the names of the soldiers who fought in World War II, but we remember the leaders who led the countries and how did they rise to the top. It wasn't through military power. It was through words. It was through saying the right thing at the right time to the right groups of people in simple messages, usually vague. Like if I came in here today and said, guys, you know what this educational system needs? It needs change. We'd all be like, yeah, that's right, we need change. In fact, this whole society needs change. And we all go, yeah, that's right, it needs change. I didn't tell you what kind of change. Whatever kind of change you think it needs, you're going to imagine that that's what I'm talking about. We could have 10 very different ideas of what I mean by that. And yet you're all going to support the same one leader who uses that one word, change. So you find the right combination of words, you find the right audience, you make it simple, direct. People follow behind it. That's easy. But those are the things that separate us. Do you believe in democracy? Do you believe in republicanism? Do you believe in communism? Do you believe in fascism? Do you believe in anarchism? Those are ideologies. Are you a Muslim? Are you a Jew? Are you a Christian? Are you an atheist? Are you Hindu? Are you a Shintoist? Those are the things that separate us. But notice it doesn't necessarily divide us. It divides us when we let it divide us. Not necessarily. It separates us into categories for sure. But again, it's a very, very Marxist approach. If you believe that those differences or that separations have to therefore divide us, if you don't see the difference between separation and division, then I would say to you that you've probably been indoctrinated with Marxist thinking. Because Marxists will try to eliminate a difference between those two. You're different from me? Yes. Well, then we have to fight. No, but we have a religion that separates us. Right, so you guys are divided. No, we're separated, but we're not divided. Divided means that we're, at war with each other. Well, if you don't overtake them, they're going to overtake you. That's just the way it works. There's either an oppressor, and there's always an oppressor and an oppressed. Which one are you? Do you have everything in life you want? Do you feel like you've always been treated fairly? Well, I guess not. Well, then that's why, because you're being oppressed. Here's a gun, go. That's almost exactly how it happens. You make it overly simplified. That's the danger when you ask a person a question, you ask them, can you just give me a short answer? Can you just give me a yes or no? Not every question has a yes or no. In fact, most don't. In fact, most good questions don't have most good answers are not just going to be yes and no. Most answers are difficult, they're complicated. And we run a risk when we oversimplify things. It's one of the reasons I talk to you guys as long as I do. To get you used to listening to it. If you're someone who zones out after just like a few seconds, well then you're not capable of taking in deep ideas. Which is fine, nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you're somehow deficient as a human being. I hope you don't vote. But statistically you will be someone who does, frighteningly enough. So that first part's simple. It's that second part, the dreams and anguish that bring us together. The thing that brings, yeah.
When I think about the dreams and anguish,
What would be like a common thing that people have a shared interest in?
probably like some kind of media or show or something, a show or a movie, or like a sport they will do, hobby, music.
Yeah, music is one that when my students come in, I see them wearing a t-shirt that has writing on it, like it might be a concert t-shirt or something like that. I always try to see if it's someone who I'm interested in. I have a new student who just started on Monday, in my third period class. He was wearing a hoodie, and it's an old band. And I asked her like, what do you know about the Misfits? She's wearing the band's called the Misfits, and she said that it was her mom's hoodie. I'm like, dope. Is that a hand age or is that just like a stretch of fingers? I think it's a hand. And especially if it's something that isn't like super popular, it's like there's like a cartoon or something like that that's a little non-linear and you find out that somebody else likes it as well. It's like, wow, look at that. You like that too? Yeah, you heard of them? Yeah. Yeah. Because that's one of the things about wearing those kinds of t-shirts or drawing those kinds of things on paper. We're kind of almost sending up a flag to other people, like letting them know, hey, we're here. You know, I like this one show, or I like this music group, or I like, you know, this one anime character or whatever. And then when you see it, you realize somebody else has that thing in common with you. And now you're no longer just kind of out there by yourself. And especially if it's something that's non-linear, you're probably a non-linear person yourself. Linear means like in a straight line. If you're a person who's a little, you know, strange, non-linear, then you come across other people who are non-linear as well, then, you know, one or two of those, and now you've got yourself a tribe. And so you don't feel nearly as alone as you were before. Yeah. So yeah, what's your political ideology? Doesn't matter, just tell me one. Hey, mine too, dude. Seriously? Yeah, you know, that's so cool. We're in the same thing. Yeah, and in that sense, their ideology brings us together. And now we can look around, and now since we're both into democracy, we can now start looking for those dirty fascists, or those ugly communists. They're out there. We just have to go find them. So in that sense, it brought us together, but now it's also not just separating us, but it's dividing us from other people as well. Because believe it or not, if you're into democracy, you can be friends with people who are communists and fascists. I know, shocking, but it's true, you can. Yeah.
Is it like,
Yeah, and even like in this room, I told you guys, no hall passes. There's no hall pass here, so we can't go to the bathroom until the hall pass shows up again. Well, what if it never shows up? Then I guess we never go. It doesn't impact me, I still get to go, but of course you guys don't. Now you guys can come together. Scallon's an asshole. It's funny, you won't have the courage to come against the person who actually did it, who actually took it off of the cliff, because it doesn't just fall off, and gave it to somebody else, which by the way, I already know. And I already know about it because somebody else already sold you out. But you won't come against that person, but you will come against the person who's the outsider. Groups do this too. You know, that's what happens. It isn't necessarily rational, but that's because we're not looking for rationality. We're looking for survival. We're looking for togetherness. That's the thing that seems to drive people and to motivate people. Yeah, and you're right. That's why even with that anguish, it can bring people together as well. Others. So anguish is not just like pain. It's like a deep psychic pain. It's torment, as I was saying. And you know, he's indicating that that's something that we all share. We'll leave it at that, though. Otherwise, we'll be here till Friday. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?